Hey Beer Geeks, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Craft Beer channel in which I'll be addressing one of the most common questions we get in the comments section of our channel, which is where I learn everything that I know and how I became such a big beer nerd. Now, obviously, becoming a beer geek isn't the aim of everybody, and in fact, beer geek is a bit of a slur, I think, in the beer world to some extent. But I think there's nothing wrong with being a beer geek. There's nothing wrong with being super passionate about something that really excites you. But being a beer snob is bad, and the distinction is beer snobs tell you what to think. Beer geeks ask you what you think. So that's what I'm hoping you guys are going to take away from this. And most of what I've learned along my now 10-year-long journey into great beer is that asking questions is the absolute best way to learn. So please, if you have questions, pop them down here. This is a great opportunity to ask me whatever you want. Now, before we dive into where I learned everything that I did, let's have a quick chat about our book, which actually, if you're fairly new to beer or even kind of intermediate, has just about everything you want to know about how to taste beer, about the ingredients of beer, about the processes in beer, and also a bit about, the geographies, the history of beer styles, and it's even got a glossary at the back that will tell you all the complicated terms that you need to know. So this is a really good, we think, sort of reference book. Even if you've been into beer for years and years, there'll be stuff in there that you might not know or that you might forget. I still use it occasionally for reference because I'm an idiot. But all of the information in this, and indeed on the Craft Beer channel, and I'll be linking to some of the videos as we go through, has been learned through other people and via osmosis. So lots of what I've learned is visiting breweries, but there's so many great resources you can use, and most of them are right here. So these are kind of my Bibles of beer. Some of them are quite hard to get hold of, some of them are super easy, and there are affiliate links down below if you want to get them. Those go to Amazon, we get a little kickback. If you want to support your independent bookseller, please, 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 please do. So let's start with the book that taught me the absolute most from a kind of technical perspective, and this is this amazing, amazing thing. So this is Tasting Beer by Randy Mosher. I've just seen the back, the cheesy uncapping the secrets of every bottle. Hopefully there's not a lot of secrets in beer. I'd rather the secrets were there on the label. But this book just covers absolutely everything, and I think it's probably the best beginner book out there, but it can get quite technical at points, so be prepared to strap in for some more dull passages. But everything you need, from historic styles to modern styles to how beer's made to how to taste it, to getting into beer and food pairing and learning how to taste like a beer judge, is all there. Talking of which, you can watch this video in which we talk with the founder of the Cicerone program, which is like sommeliers for beer, and that teaches you how to taste like a beer judge as well, and that's one of our best watched videos. But this is my absolute #1 tip for books outside of this one, and I absolutely love that book and still return to it. Another amazing resource, and in fact the first beer book that I ever read is from my now friend Mark Dredge. You can see this one's had some love. This was the first book that I ever read about beer. On the face of it, it's a listicle, right? It's 350 of the finest beers known to man. But what's great is the context that Mark gives. When he talks about a West Coast IPA, he'll explain what it is. When he talks about Lambic, he'll explain what it is. And that is how I learned so much of what we were using, particularly early on in the channel. Now, this is still available, and I believe Mark is working on an updated version because this was released in 2014, 2015? 2013. Oh boy, we're old. So there is a modern version of that coming out, but this one's still worth picking up. So another book, this one's really hard to get hold of, and I had to pay a bit of a fortune to get it. But if you want a book that teaches you about Belgian beer, but is one of the most entertaining, interesting, most beautifully written books about alcohol in general ever, then this is the book to pick up. The Great Beers of Belgium by the great Michael Jackson. Sadly, we lost Michael Jackson before I got into beer, but he is still, I think, probably the most poetic and the most interesting and the most inspiring writer that we've ever had in beer. Don't expect any criticisms or critiques. Like, he's very, very, very positive, sometimes about stuff he perhaps shouldn't be, but in terms of getting context and the stories, it just can't be beaten. It's a wonderful, wonderful book if you can get hold of it. Another great book if you're into particularly wild ales, barrel-aged stouts, like anything that's sort of wood-based, is this amazing thing. So this is by Dirk Campwell and Peter Brookhart. This is all about the relationship between wood and beer. Again, it can get quite Well, geeky. So you'll learn all about the history of the barrel, people. Oh yeah. Which is more interesting than it sounds. And then it goes into a lot of how these beers are made, which might be a bit technical for some drinkers, but I found it a fascinating read, and it taught me a lot about something that doesn't have a lot of science behind it, but does have huge amounts of anecdotal evidence and process behind it, and that's what I find so fascinating. If you are into the history of beer, this is a very British-based one, but this book is just awesome. And I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you don't buy this book, at least go to the website of Martin Cornell, which is zitherfile.co.uk, where basically all of the great questions in beer history are answered in blogs by him. But this is a great read and a really interesting introduction to the history of beer. And what's great about this being all about British beer is that so many beer styles around the world are influenced by more traditional British brewing, you know, even down to American pale ales, American IPAs. That all started with traditional British brewing and exporting of that beer. So obviously in today's world, pretty much all of the knowledge you could possibly want is also online. So while I still recommend picking up these books because they're beautiful and they're long form and you can just lose yourself in them, going online is another great way of doing it. I mean, I run a YouTube channel, of course I'd say that, but there are some amazing other websites that I've used as resources, other than zitherfile.co.uk, which I've already mentioned for sort of the historical side. If you want to know what's happening now in craft beer, Good Beer Hunting is the place to go. Caveat, I do write for them, but there's no other website in the world that's talking about beer and cider in the way that they do. That's, you know, it's led me down so many avenues, taken me to so many breweries, like by inspiring me with the writing. Much of the content on the Craft Beer channel has been inspired by articles that I've read on Good Beer Hunting. And you'll learn stuff about beer via osmosis. Like, it's a nerdy website. It goes into the details when it interviews people of how beers are made, how recipes are put together, how businesses are formed, all of this. So while reading amazing stuff, you'll learn via osmosis. Another slightly similar website, but one that actually brings in wine, cider, food, is Pellicle, which is run by my friend Matt Curtis. That's another fantastic website full of great writing, some more sort of short form pieces if that's more of your thing, and that's a great resource as well, and still a young website and still growing, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. I've also got a selection of favourite beer blogs. Jeff Allworth is an absolute hero of mine, Beervana. He's based over in Oregon, so I'll put some links to some other guys as well as Jeff down below, as well as some great YouTube channels such as Real Ale Guide, Hopzine, Pint Size, who all have their different approach to teaching you about beer and mostly reviewing beer. So those are in the links below as well. So the final thing you need to become a beer geek is the right tools. Now I know that sounds ridiculous, it's just beer, you shouldn't need tools to enjoy it. And most of the time I'd agree, but when we're geeking out, there's two things that I always have by my side, as well as my books and my laptop. One of those is a great glass, and by that I mean a great utility glass, so one that you can use for all kinds of different styles. Now we're privileged enough that we were able to make our own, and these are available in short supply at the moment, hopefully there'll be more. What you want from a beer glass is a couple of things. One, you want a nucleation point at the bottom. That helps it keep the bubbles going, keep the aroma kicking out. The other thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is you want a thinner top than you have a bottom. That creates this bowl shape, which means that then when you try to get the aromas, they pop out and they're stuck there. And to be honest, any beer glass that doesn't have a thinner top isn't a very good beer glass, except for Belgian chalices, which totally get a free pass. You're welcome, monks. So, get yourself a great glass that you can use for all kinds of styles. There's not a single style that this isn't suited to. But it does fit a 440ml IPA. So the other thing that I absolutely love, and sadly it's becoming a little bit more redundant, but it's still worth picking up because they're only about £6, is a Hermetis. So if you're a beer geek, there's going to be times where you're drinking on your own, and that's fine. The issue is, if you crack a 750 of an Imperial Stout, or I don't know, a barley wine, you probably shouldn't drink that all in one sitting, and that's why I love the Hermetis. This is not sponsored, I just fucking love these things. What it means is you can crack your bottle, and then you can use, it's got a hermetic seal, so you can push it back on, and then it will stay carbonated and stay pretty well unoxidized for, I've had it last for about 3 days. If you get that seal properly on, 3 days of still quality beer. And when it comes to drinking barley wines and Imperial Stouts and big Gurzes and stuff where you don't want to finish a whole 750, that's absolutely invaluable, and it means that I actually open those big bottles that I've got. So there are links to everything that I've talked about in this video. Pretty much all of the books, although some of them are out of print, so you might need to buy them secondhand, to our glassware, to the Hermetis. Hell, I'll put a link to Siren as well, because that's a delicious IPA. And then to all of the websites and the blogs that I mentioned, they're all down below. If you've got any questions, please use this as an opportunity to either ask me a question about beer or ask a question about a writer or a blogger or a website or a book. And I can give you all the information that I have there. And I'd love it if anybody out there has information and wants to reply to those comments too, because the best way to become a beer geek is to hang out with other geeks. So be kind, ask questions, and of course remember that the more you know about beer, the more you can shut the hell up and enjoy it.